Well, greetings, amazing students. Welcome back to another exciting week of Sci 120 Lifespan Development. This week, I've got a lesson for you that I intend to keep a little bit short and sweet. I know it's been a very long semester for you. You have all been working hard, putting in the effort. So what I'm going to do is try to deliver the content for this week short and sweet, give you a nice, concise lecture so that you can spend time catching up, preparing for your labs, doing what you need to do as we start to approach the end of the semester. So I want to say congratulations to you all. Our focus for this week's lecture is going to be on serving older adults and ageism. Specifically, we're going to look at serving older adults from the ages of 50 and older. We are going to talk about, in terms of lifespan development, different age groups and generations of age categories. We're going to talk about that, some of the dynamics as age categories interact with one another, older and younger generations. But our main focus is going to be on the process of aging, as well as serving older adults, 50 years old and older. Okay? So without further ado, let me go ahead and share our slides, and we'll dive into the lecture today. My goal will be is to make this, like I said, short and sweet. So when we talk about age in lifespan development, there are generations, right, of ages, all kinds of generations of ages, all intermingling with one another on a daily basis. Whether you are in a classroom, right, and there's an interaction between my age group of what I fall into technically is this category of millennial, 1981 is the year I was born. Okay, full disclosure there. And some of you may be in younger generations. We're interacting cross-generationally, what we call intergenerationally. If you go to the supermarket, right? If you go to the movie theater, if you go to church, right? You have multiple generations interacting with one another at any given time. When human beings in the natural course of interacting with one another do so, it's not uncommon that forms of discrimination or isms, right, arise. So today we're going to talk about different age groups, categories, generations within our society. We'll talk a little bit about ageism and what that's like and how that's manifested in our society. And what I'm also going to do is give you some considerations from a theoretical perspective on the process of aging, okay? So there are about 5 age groups, generations that are living currently in the United States, all interacting with one another on a daily basis. First, we have our baby boomers, right? That's anyone that was born from 1946 to 1964. Baby boomers were following the World War II generation, right? We have Generation X, which is anyone born from 1964 to 1980. I fell right on that cusp, right in between where I was born in 1981. So I fall under the millennial category, though I would say there's definitely attributes about me and my generational sort of upbringing and outlook that cross over between Gen X and millennial. Then you have Generation Z. This would be my daughter's generation. She was born in 2010. So Generation Z is anyone born from 1997 to 2012. And then you've got Generation Alpha coming up right behind, right? Anyone born from 2012 through 2024, all right? So those are the categories, right, of our generations that are all interacting with one another. Now, I'd like to provide you with some overarching detail related to these generations. At an estimated 73 million individuals, the boomer generation is the second largest age group after their children, the millennials born from 1982 to 2000. So after World War II, people survived World War II, soldiers came home. They had seen amazing atrocities and experienced high levels of trauma in the world, right? They had seen a lot of violence. They came back and they said to themselves, life is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. I'm going to live life to the fullest. And in the process of doing that, they had lots of kids. And those kids ended up having lots of kids themselves. And so second largest is the boomer population, followed by millennials, okay, my group here. The number of people aged 65 and older in the U.S. Has grown rapidly over the 20th century, from 3.1 million, and get this, in 1900 to 35 million in 2000. Boomer population has grown exponentially, right, in the past century. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth from ages 65 and older. What does that mean for you in your future practice as nurses and speech pathologists? Chances are you will be serving aging populations of 65 and older in your career. Think to your aging adult interviews, right, that are also assigned. This is why it's so important that I'm asking you to interview 2 individuals ages 65 and older to capture the wisdom and experiences and history and note of lifespan development, how things change for these individuals throughout their lifespan. But aging boomers are not the only reason that the nation's population is getting older overall. We're also living longer, right? So we don't just have more people that are at age 65. You also have people that are living longer in their lifespans due to better health care. And we also have record low birth rates among young women, which are also major factors, okay? So as healthcare technology improves, as treatments improve for chronic conditions, people are living longer. Life expectancy at the age of 65 has also increased and went from 11.9 years from 1900 to about 1902 to 19.1 years in 2010. So what we saw was a lifespan of about, almost 8 points, 8 years in which a person is living longer over the past century, right? And so that's something for us to think about. Now, I also want to add in your Blackboard assignments, I share a movie that I'm asking you to watch, a docu-series, and that docu-series gives us some other implications to think about. People are living longer, right? But that doesn't necessarily always mean that their quality of life has improved. As people are living longer, right, if their income stays the same, it actually means they have less money over a longer period of time that they need to survive and live a certain lifestyle. And if folks are living longer but have less money to be able to spend on healthcare and other things, it doesn't necessarily mean their life, quality of life is improving. So I give you some content on Blackboard. Please watch that because it pairs well. It's the other side of this coin, right, that I'm giving you today. Now, we want to define the term ageism, just like we have with some other terms that we've served. So ageism is a prejudice or discrimination against a person's age specifically. And usually what we see is against elderly individuals, individuals 50 years and older by younger individuals. However, there are some circumstances to kind of consider. Nowadays, let me bring this back for a second. Nowadays, what we're also seeing, because of all those generations living together and interacting together, we're not only seeing discrimination of young to old, but we're also experiencing a little bit of a war between boomers and millennials, where boomers are picking fun at millennials in the workplace as well, and they're actually treating individuals differently too. So this is a dynamic that's relatively new in our society. It's looking that the form of ageism is looking different. It's not only going one direction anymore, it's going two directions. Also, it's important to reference in terms of lifespan development, that ageist feelings and perceptions develop during early adolescence about the same time as other forms of discrimination, such as racism, ethnocentrism, and other biases start to form, okay? So I just want to share that with you. Now, examples of ageism, right? Sometimes when it comes to ageism, we may say that it's relatively innocent. We're just poking fun at a particular age group. We see images like this, right? The birthday card there. We see the survival kit when someone turns 40 years old or older. And we give boomers these gifts, right? And we're saying, haha, it's kind of funny, like we're making fun of your age. It seems innocent. But there's also some implications that we want to think about on a more deep level. Now, one of the things that I also mentioned is typically what we had seen in history before was younger generations kind of poking fun at older generations. But as I said, as we have all these generations interacting with one another, we're seeing something else. In the mid 2000s, what we started to see was a trend of where it wasn't only, millennials, for example, making fun of boomers, but we had boomers also picking fun at millennials. Content posted on the internet about this, like perceptions of the workplace, right? Boomers, saying like, look, in my age generation, we say, I really think this is an HR issue. We should look into it, right? And they're saying what millennials, so tied to their technology and social media, tend to respond something like this. I'm going to post this on YouTube and that will get their attention. Hashtag later fired, right? And so there's these generational wars that are going on in which individuals on the surface are picking fun at one another. It seems innocent enough. But I would encourage us to think a little bit more deeply about the topic of ageism, because there's more to think about when we are role modeling how we view and experience different generations in our places of work, in our places of worship, and other places of society. We have to remember that we're also setting a trend for how younger generations are going to treat older generations as well. We're role modeling this behavior for folks. So I'd like us to think more deeply about it from a theoretical standpoint. Way back in 1968, there was this gerontologist named Robert Butler. And Robert Butler was the first to really coin the term ageism. And Robert Butler said that ageism, even though it doesn't get the same sort of headlines, attention, or drama around it, is a significant problem in society that we need to face. He said that ageism was called, as he called it, the ultimate prejudice, the last discrimination, the cruelest rejection. He says ageism affects old and young. Children can be particularly sensitive to ageism, since being told you're too young is just as bad as being too old. Some of you may have grown up in that period, like this is how I grew up, right? Where older adults told us, like, don't speak unless spoken to, right? There's no amount of value that you can add to a conversation with adults. So just kind of sit on the sidelines and stay out of the conversation. That can message to younger adults that they don't have anything of value to contribute to conversations when actually they have some really innovative and deep thoughts about what's going on in the world around them. And so Robert Butler was the first to coin this term ageism. And he says we have to be careful about ageism. See, here's the thing that we don't realize about ageism on a deeper level. When I role model, if I were to role model jokes about aging populations, about boomers, individuals 50 years, 65 years or older, my daughter is growing up, right? And she's in that Gen Alpha, right? I'm sorry, Gen Z population. She's watching and hearing all of the language that I use, and I'm shaping her perception about how she views older generations. Well, guess what? God willing, if I were to live a long life, I'm going to be that older generation one day. And what have I done? I've created an environment where now my daughter is going to treat me the way that I've treated my elders, right? If for anything of self-preservation purposes, we want to be sensitive to the fact of ageism, because how we teach our children to interact with elder populations is how we will be treated one day. And that's what Robert Butler was trying to get us to understand, right? So I want to just share a few statistics related to ageism to kind of demonstrate on a macro level, right? What are some of the challenges that individuals face when they move into this stage of 50 years old or older? The American Association of Retired Persons, right, AARP, conducted a study and found that 64% of older workers say that they have seen or personally experienced ageism in the workplace. They have said to themselves, no, this is present, it's real. People don't always take it seriously, but it's going on in my place of work. 58% of workers today believe that ageism begins at work when they reach the age of 50. Imagine that. So it's funny that, when I was younger, I used to think that 50 was kind of getting up there in years, right? I didn't say old, but I thought to myself, getting up there in years. Now I'm in my 40s. Suddenly 50 doesn't seem that old to me, right? Yet what we are seeing is 58% of workers are saying, but I am being treated differently. Once I hit that 50 mark and older in the workplace, I'm starting to see and experience this concept of ageism. Age has negatively affected things like advancement, selection for positions, evaluations on your performance, and ratings of interpersonal skills for workers for studies that rate back as far back as the 1970s. So individuals are saying, not only am I experiencing the phenomena of being treated differently at work when I hit that age of 50 or older, what I'm also seeing is that I'm evaluated differently now. People may start to be a little more critical of my performance. Where I was once excelling in certain roles, suddenly I hit a number and my annual evaluations are starting to look different. That can be unnerving, right? For if you've lived in a career, right, your entire life, and you've excelled in that career, to suddenly see things change can be alarming and a little anxiety provoking. 15% of workers in a recent study said it would be unacceptable to have a boss who was 70 years old. They said that was too old for you to serve as a boss. That's 3 times greater than those who would find it unacceptable to have a boss that was 30 years old. So some individuals did say, yes, 30, you're too young. But the majority of individuals are saying, look, once you're 70, I consider you too old to serve as my boss, right? An example of ageism. The company Cisco said it would be hiring 2,000 millennials while at the same time laying off 12,000 other presumably older mid-tier workers. Some agencies, and I'm not saying this is necessarily Cisco, in this case, but other agencies have chosen to lay off older workers because they know that retirement and pensions and things like this are coming up. And it's cheaper to bring on younger employees to train them up, right? Because they're starting from a lower area on the salary poll, as opposed to your workers who have been there a long period of time and have seen increases over the course of maybe even decades working with that agency. So there's a few considerations that we want to have for ageism. Now, before I go into this slide, what I want to do is play one very short video for you. I think the video is a total of like 4 minutes. And the reason I want to show you this video is, again, we want to put ourselves in the perspective of others. So when we talked about ableism, right, we listened to Dylan's testimony. Here, I'd like to hear the testimonies, play the testimonies of several aging adults, those individuals who are boomers 65 and older, when they talk about their own perceptions of ageism. How do they view ageism? And then we'll come back, review some concepts and summarize the lesson, and we'll finish up for today. So let's watch this video. Let's hear from individuals who are in that last area of their lifespan, right? That last stage in their lifespan. And let's learn a little bit of wisdom from them.
When I was young, everybody liked you, and it was like being a puppy. Everybody thinks you're wonderful.
If I say I'm 94, they say, oh, we don't know if we can really believe what she says. You know?
Going to different independent living communities with my daughter. And what happened on those visits was invariably, with the exception of this place, the people who were taking us around would talk to my daughter rather than myself, and I felt invisible.
I don't think they should confuse physical disability with mental disability. That's the one that does bother me. Here I am, I'm being pushed around in a wheelchair, but that doesn't stop me from thinking.
They don't really look at us as individuals.
I have my own sort of idea what it is like to be old.
I do things that some younger people cannot do.
Everybody, I think, ages somewhat differently.
I still go hiking, you know, I still go out to the symphony.
I've always had a very good memory.
I want to know more about history.
I'm interested in people. I'd like to know about them.
I think I'm the one that had some misconceptions.
I never thought about aging as a time to feel happier than I had in the rest of my life.
I never expected that I ever would meet another woman that I could be in love with. Well, it turned out I did.
I've come to enjoy it, to being with people who have various different capabilities, and I fit in somewhere in that spectrum.
I like being old. That's the opening statement. Have you any questions?
All right. I wanted to show you that video because it really does speak powerfully right to this example of ageism through the eyes of individuals who are in this age group. If you notice, many of them said, look, my body may be changing and I may have had inherited some diverse abilities, going back to our last lecture, right? But they're saying, but my mind is sharp. I'm still here. I still have interests. I still have passions. I still have a desire to do things. I still seek companionship with other people, right? I still reflect on my life, right? And want to be involved and active in the community. And they said, I have some of my own ideas about aging, right? As opposed to the ideas that are placed on individuals from society, assigning value or a lack thereof to individuals simply because their age. And so I wanted us to really kind of spend time reflecting on that, right? That this notion of ageism, oftentimes we don't think of ourselves as being old, but suddenly we find ourselves, God willing, in that place in our lives, and we realize that there was so much about our life that we didn't anticipate on where we would be physically, cognitively, emotionally at that stage in our lifespan. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that with you, and I hope that you found that helpful. There are some considerations as nurses and speech pathologists that we want to be attuned to in order to avoid, right, practicing or inadvertently expressing ageist thoughts. And so I want to share some of those with you. Though ageism, I want to remind us, doesn't receive the same amount of attention as other forms of discrimination, the societal impact is significant, right? Our current hegemonic practices, meaning just those practices from systems surrounding ageism, they don't only impact the current aging population, but one day they can potentially impact you as well. Think of yourself as a future aging adult, 65 and older. Some college kid comes to you and says, can I interview you for a project, right? What would you have to say to them? how do you think you'll be treated by society? If we want things to change, we have to begin to do that within our generation. Ageism does not typically present as overtly discriminatory or old fashioned, right? We may often associate ageism as a senior issue, but remember, it impacts both ends of the spectrum. Ageism towards millennials, ageism towards boomers, even ageism towards Gen Z and Alpha. Capitalist societies, right? Societies that put a large amount of stock in the bottom line, in economic growth, sometimes tend to view the youngest and oldest workers as the least contributing members of a team. They say you're either too young, right, to dive into this business and generate wealth and fortune, or at some point you get too old to keep up with the younger generation. We want to be attuned to that, right, with our clients. And finally, I want to give you some examples of ageism so we can avoid these practices, right, in our career. We may make the assumption that individuals who are of an older generation aren't tech savvy. When we think about it, technology is turning out almost every single day and improving on a daily basis. And so we want to be aware of that so that we don't make those assumptions, because we may be there as well. We may be out of touch at times. We may be assuming that individuals who are aging are out of touch at certain times. We want to avoid using a tone of voice, assuming that because someone is aging or an older adult that they can't hear to the same degree. And we want to avoid this notion of elder speak. So when we see an aging adult, we don't necessarily need to start speaking loudly and yelling at them, right? And we don't want to engage in what's called old speak or elder speak, in which we sit down and kind of kneel down to them and say, "Oh, are you going out for lunch today? Isn't that good for you?" Right? Because we want to remember, even though the body is aging, the mind doesn't, it could necessarily still be sharp, right? And so individuals are saying, "Why is this person speaking to me in elder speak? Like, I can hear you just fine." Or, "Why are you assuming that you need to talk to me like a child?" Right? We want to be attuned to when jobs are exclusively searching for recent grads, right? That can be code for we're actually not looking for older adults because they're not a good fit for the agency. Why is that? We want to be able to challenge those beliefs and say, what is it about an older adult that makes them not a fit for our agency? In fact, there's a lot that we can learn from older adults, as you see in your interviews. We don't want to avoid using descriptors like, "Oh, that old woman, that old man," and we use terms like these you've seen on social media and things, because what they're doing is, remember we talked about dehumanizing. We see someone as a part of their identity rather than the whole person. We want to avoid those kind of things, right? Young people, we want to make the assumption that young people are not all non-dependent, right, or undependable. We want to be able to value young people and see what they bring to the table, right? And we want to make sure that teenagers and children are able to express their voices, especially their concerns about what they're seeing around the world. Just because a young person is unable to vote, if they're below that age, it doesn't mean that they still don't have a political opinion or an opinion about the world or hopes for the world. We want to be able to include them, right, into those scenarios. All right. Finally, the last thing I want to leave you with before we leave for today is just one thought from Andy Rudy. I have learned that the best classroom in the world is at the feet of an elderly person, right? And that's why I took the time in this class to assign those interviews of aging adults with you, right? That you don't only need to learn from me or your textbook, but in the course of lifespan development, you can literally meet with an aging adult and learn a tremendous amount of information about lifespan development from simply sitting right at the foot of an elderly person and listening right to their stories. Finally, for today, and again, I want to thank you. That's why I was keeping this lesson short and sweet, is I want to go ahead and dive into our centering exercise for today, which comes to us from John chapter 14, verse 1. And in that scripture, it says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith also in me," right? Jesus is saying, like, keep your faith in God. Know that as the Son of God, I am here. I have been sent because you're worthwhile, because I want to redeem you, right? I am here for you. Know that God is always here for you, reaching for you, supporting you, engaging you. So let's go ahead and put our hands and feet in a nice comfortable position. Let's go ahead and take a deep breath and close our eyes. And as you close your eyes, I'd like for you to think about what Jesus is saying to you, right? You have faith in God, have faith in me, right? I'm here for you. I've always been with you. I'm never leaving your side. And dwell on that place of oneness with God in this moment. And we'll return in just a few minutes. All right, go ahead and open your eyes. Take one more nice deep breath and go ahead and come on back. Folks, I want to thank you for your persistence, for your work ethic, right? For your dedication to your studies throughout this semester. You're doing an excellent job. Keep it up. Before you know it, you'll be at the end of the semester. As always, reach out if you have any questions. I'm here for you. Have a wonderful week. God bless.